As the president has been trying to sell the idea of the wall, you may have noticed a strange and macabre narrative has emerged, one he seems to love to talk about. During the shutdown, he started talking about all of these migrant women who were being bound with tape over their mouths. Sometimes he described it as duct tape, sometimes it was electrical tape, sometimes it was blue tape, riding in vans across the border. Now, the type of tape changed along the way, but the stories all had one thing in common. No one could actually track down where this notion of taped up women came from, but the president kept repeating it.
One of the things that happens there is human traffickers,
where they grab women, put tape over their mouth, come through our border, and sell them.
We're talking about, in many cases, women and children grabbed. They have tape over their mouths, electrical tape, usually blue tape, as they call it. It's powerful stuff, not good. Taped their mouths with duct tape, with electrical tape, so they can't shout or scream. They tape their face, their hair, their hands behind their back, their legs. With duct tape all over the place, it's a disgrace. Putting them in the backseat of a car or a van with no windows, with no any form of air. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at a time. They make a left turn after they go out 20 miles, 40 miles, 5 miles in some cases and less. They make a right turn going very quickly. And as soon as there's no protection, they make a left or a right.
Now, human trafficking is a horrible thing. There's no doubt about that. There's no argument about that. But as we pointed out about the immigration debate over and over and over, good people can disagree on it, but there's no need to make stuff up. And that's what, again, seems to be going on here, because about the whole duct tape anecdote, multiple experts say they don't know where that is coming from. One expert in immigration and human trafficking told the Washington Post the claim was, quote, divorced from reality. And that's when this next story went, next level. After that Washington Post report, a senior Customs and Border Patrol official emailed agents asking them for any information in any format about women taped up and being driven to the United States in cars and vans. So think about that. Government officials asking for evidence to back up a repeated claim by the president, one that experts say is not supported by reality. The email was first reported by Vox and seems to be another extraordinary example of government officials paid by you tying themselves in knots, trying to retrofit the president's false claims into some kind of truth. Dana Milbank was also wrote about this whole sordid affair for the Washington Post, and he joins me now. I mean, it's one thing for the president to make up stories to help his case, for the government to then spend time and resources to try to retrofit the narrative is troubling.
It is, Anderson. I mean, look, it doesn't surprise anybody that the president has a knack for saying things that aren't necessarily true. The Washington Post fact checker says he does this on average 16 and a half times a day. But it is troubling when, as you say, taxpayer dollars are being used to basically go in and backfill and attempt to make falsehoods true. It's happened in the case with the duct tape, but it's been happening all along. We saw it at the beginning with the very beginning with the inauguration crowd, when the president calls the Park Service and says, come up with photographic evidence to show that it was a record crowd. We've seen it subsequently with him promising a 10% tax cut that didn't exist. They had to go and retrofit that, saying there were Middle Easterners in the caravan. They had to go and find evidence of that and failed to find it. And of course, the allegation of voter fraud, they had a whole commission to find that, didn't find it, and disbanded. So there's a lot of wheel spinning going on in our government to try to turn fiction into fact.
And Dana, an official from the Border Patrol responded to us regarding Vox's story, and they said, and I'm quoting, "We are facing a border security and humanitarian crisis on the southern border. Over the past several months, the Border Patrol has apprehended a record number of family units along the southern border. Trans-criminal organizations have exacerbated this crisis by diversifying their illicit enterprises with human beings, resulting in billion-dollar profits. It is paramount that Congress address the legal framework and allocate the necessary resources to meet this crisis without further delay." All of which, you know, is an understandable statement. It makes no mention of this story by the president about this epidemic of women being bundled into vehicles with duct blue tape and making lefts and rights.
there's no question that there's an issue at the border. Whether it's a crisis is another matter,
Right.
because indeed it's a lot less of a problem than it has been in decades prior. But you see the president trying to create a crisis out of this, sort of gilds the lily and says they make left turns, they right turns, it's blue tape, it's electrical tape. So this is where it becomes something extraordinary, and you don't actually need to do that to make the case. The Border Patrol seems perfectly capable of making a legitimate statement without making something outrageous.
Right.
The best people can tell is there was tape put on a woman's mouth. It was in Sicario, a movie last year with Benicio del Toro. Is it possible the president saw that and got it in his mind, and now we're trying to make life imitate art?
And I mean, look, terrible things have happened to people being trafficked. There are people who've been, locked in the back of trucks and suffocated. I mean, one does not need to invent things which are not true, or at least not a major problem. There's plenty of real things you can point to describe the horrors of human trafficking.
Right, and it makes you wonder if the president devoted half the energy he does to concocting these things to dealing with reality, say negotiating with Congress, with the Democrats on a border solution, that could be achieved rather than using that energy to send American government officials on a wild goose chase to come up with something that is not, if it may have occurred at one point to somebody in history, but it certainly isn't a major predicament on the border.
We should also point out that that statement did not deny that an email had been sent out, basically, asking for evidence. Dana Milbank, thank you so much. Appreciate it.